Burgundy, and
this is Lauren.
This is Yoga Rebels. And today we're going to be talking about yin yoga. So in a past episode, we actually literally just talked about it. Today we're going to show it. We were talking about it and decided that all of these videos that we're doing of trying to tell you the different styles of yoga, because it's so damn complicated, we thought, well, how about we just show it, be done with it. So yeah, so today Lauren's going to show us some yoga, some yin poses, and I'm going to try to accomplish them. Yes.
And we'll show a variety of ways that you can use props in yin yoga, because one of the things that we talked about in the last video was that you're not really necessarily warming up to do yin and you're holding the poses for a lot longer. So the goal is to be comfortable to start and gradually kind of ease into the pose, and as you start to feel like you can, go deeper if you'd like. So we'll show a variety of things that you might see in a typical yin class. So say Thursday mornings at 9, beginning yin class. Let's just say you happen to come here to Yoga Happiness at 9 a.m. on a Thursday to take beginning yin with me.
Yeah.
Let's start. Well, let's go ahead and start with a back bend. So in yin, a back bend is going to be really gentle, really easy. So we'll start with, let's start with Sphinx pose. So you might not need any props, but I would sometimes recommend having the bolster or a blanket handy. If you would like, you can bring a folded up blanket, and I have one here too, to the very top of your mat. You're actually going to lay down on your belly and bring your elbows under your shoulders. So you might have to scooch your blanket in if you're using a blanket. If this is too much lift, if you start to feel like it's pinching or compressing your low back, it might be better to completely release that. Or if you want a little bit of extra lift, you could take this bolster, bring it right underneath your elbows, so your hands are kind of hanging off, which could feel a little bit awkward. But for this one, whether you use the bolster or the blanket or nothing at all underneath you, you're keeping your feet, your legs, your hips, your belly glued to the mat, and you're not putting a lot of effort into it. So in a traditional yoga class, you might do cobra with your hands under your shoulders, and you might really push up, so you're squeezing your shoulder blades together. There's a lot of muscular energy being used. In yin, it's gentle, it's passive, so we're just really hanging out here. So you could look slightly down, you could look just out in front of you. The neck is pretty relaxed here. The hands can be either pointing straight ahead, or sometimes it feels good to turn them out a little bit.
I actually have this really great propping going on, because one of the things that I
you got it all going on.
I really do. One of the things that I don't like in some of the back bends in yin is the effort that I have to make with my arms and my shoulders.
Yeah.
Literally right now nothing is happening with my arms. They're literally just there to sort of like guide me with some length in my back, but I really have no weight on my forearms, which is fantastic. I'm really just getting a back bend, and my shoulders are taking a break.
Right, so for this one, it's more about the smallest amount of back bend that you can get. And in a class, we would hold this for about 3 to 5 minutes, which can feel like a long time. So having all those props and having less effort out is what you want. So you get that little bit of a stretch through the belly, and then if at any point you start to feel like it's pinching, it's compressing the low back, I like to tell people, you're not a hostage, you're not a prisoner, you can come out of it. So I'll sometimes recommend that people just come down and just maybe take a few breaths. They can either rest their face one side or the other, or make the little tabletop with the hands and rest the forehead down.
And you know what? So this pose actually, I had a hysterectomy probably I don't even remember when, 5 or 7 years ago. This was the first yoga practice that I did after my surgery. Literally during the week after my surgery, I was doing little tiny Sphinx poses. So I was looking for both the strength and the stretch. So I was doing I did 2 or 3 breaths because that's all I could handle.
Yeah.
And then I released down, and the feeling of just holding myself up to get the stretch on the front of my body, as well as working on strength in the back, this was fantastic, and this is part of what helped me, and it helped heal my incisions as well, because I was giving them space to breathe.
Right.
So I have a lot of fondness for Sphinx.
Yeah, and then the nice thing is too, is if you're here and you want to make this a little bit bigger, if you can do it without it causing strain or feeling like your shoulders are scrunching up into your ears with, all of this effort, you can come up to seal. So in seal, that's when I like to turn my fingertips out.
And do you do heels in specifically? Because for me, sometimes feet wider, heels in. That's kind of the way that I learned it.
I can't. My hips rotate so far inward that I can't do that. So I just leave my feet flat.
Yeah. So whatever feels best. Honestly, when my feet are wider, it also, since we're being honest here, there's also a lot of pressure on my pubic bone.
I can see that.
And so I think when my feet are closer together, there's less pressure on my pubic bone.
Yeah.
But when my feet are wider, I feel, so there's different action going on with my butt muscles.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just throwing it out there. So
there's some butt action.
There's some butt action, yeah. So the answer really is, it's a back bend.
Right.
So whatever feels best with your legs and your butt and your pubic bone, do it.
Yeah, for me, having my feet really wide does not feel good. Like I said, my hips rotate inward really strongly. So for me, having my feet they're not turning out. I'm trying to do that right now, and they're just
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you just keep your legs straight.
Yeah. So this again. This would be a little bit more intensive. I probably wouldn't have people here for 5 minutes. No. You could, do that if that's what you want to do, but that starts to feel like a lot more compression on the low back.
Can I admit things too?
I think you should.
Belly back bends make me burp.
Because you're breathing into the mat.
Yeah, and then it's pushing my belly and like little baby cobra. Whenever I'm teaching it, I always have to teach and breathe differently because I'm bah! If I don't, then that's really disgusting anyway. So I'm oversharing.
Inhale, burp.
Yes. All right. So
that would be your back bending in yin. Some ways of kind of releasing that would be child's pose, or you could do again that tabletop with the hands, rest the forehead on top of the hands. You could bring the arms to the side and rest your cheek, unless you have glasses on. I don't recommend it. So either one would be really good. In yin, there's a huge emphasis on, I think, hip openers and forward bending. The Sphinx, the seal, doesn't really get into too many other back bends. It's a lot of forward bending. And the hips and the hamstrings are spots that people tend to be super duper tight. So another really common one in yin. In yin, I think we talked about the different names, I think, in the last one. How all of the poses, you know the poses if you've taken a regular yoga class, but they've changed the names to protect the innocent. So, and rather than saying if you're gonna go Sanskrit Janu, bringing your foot in, this is caterpillar or half caterpillar.
Yeah. I've seen half butterfly too,
and also half
butterfly.
Yeah. So they bring in animal names. So it's a forward bend. So there are about a billion things you could do for this. If you know your hamstrings are tight, you could grab a blanket. You could sit up on a blanket a little bit. You could grab a strap as well. So say, you're one of those people, can't touch your toes. I can't touch my toes, which everybody likes to say that's why they don't want to do yoga. So
bend your knees.
Just bend your knees. You can touch your toes. It's just going to be different. So you can do a couple different things. You can stack some blocks if you've got a pretty regular yoga practice, your hamstrings are feeling okay, which I don't know if your hamstrings are feeling okay, but
they're talking.
They're flexible. So you could just make yourself comfortable resting your forehead on some blocks, maybe that's not going to work for you. So maybe you take the strap, wrap it around the ball of the foot, and you hang out here. And then this is one of those where you're holding it for several minutes, so like 3 to 5 minutes. So you don't want to try to jam yourself into it right away. So if this is your edge, this is where you feel like you can go, you stay there, and then as time goes on, maybe you start to bring it forward. Maybe that's too much, and you bring a bolster on top of your leg. Maybe that's not enough, so you use 2 bolsters. I've had people use 3 bolsters, so you're really just relaxing over the bolster. The thing that's a little different with yin is that sometimes you'll hear in your regular yoga classes, traditional yoga classes, flex the foot, keep that foot flexed, toes pointing up. It doesn't have to. Yin, the foot can be more relaxed, remembering we're working with connective tissue, we're working with all of the fascia along the back of the leg, so you can keep it really relaxed. Keep the spine long before you come forward, and then relax over.
And so this is where you really can see how yin, because we in our last video about yin, we talked about recommending having already some sort of meditation practice or something like that. Like fidgeting is for real. Like if usually in a traditional yoga class, you're holding stuff for maybe 5 breaths, maybe 10, whatever. 5 minutes is a really long time, especially if you're really feeling it. So when I teach yin with trivia, so that we're doing trivia stuff. So I cheat. Your class is straight up yin, where you're sitting with it and you're breathing. Yeah, and so the challenge is to stay there. You're fighting against all of these things. Your body's like, usually we're only in this for 5 breaths, Berg. Why are we in this for 5 minutes? Yeah, and so this is where you're really, arguably, I think you're really tapping into true yoga with focus and sticking with it. I mean, and there's a difference between discomfort and like injurious pain.
Right.
Stabbing pain is bad, but like you're gonna feel discomfort, and you're not gonna get through the discomfort unless you sit with it and breathe.
Right. And I think that's the stuff that builds resilience. That's the stuff that carries over into other areas of life. But going back to the injurious pain in this one, in particular, wherever you end up, anything behind the knees that is feeling like pinching, like it's any kind of pain in general at the knees is an indicator that you need to bend the knee a little bit. You need to grab another prop. You need to come up a little bit. So that's kind of like one of the main things that I will tell people is that you want to feel, it's more of a, and I think stretch can mean different things to different people too. So it's almost like more of a gentle pulling of the back of the leg. So the hamstring and the calf. You might even feel this in your foot if your leg is super tight. So there are a lot of different things that you can do for this one. I have had people have their knees bent this much, and this is feeling like a big stretch for them, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that brings up too is being okay with where you are right now. Because that's where the practice I think gets really difficult too. Is if this is your forward bend, and say you feel like you should have your forehead on your shin and you should have that like completely straight, you're already shoulding all over yourself, and you're not gonna have
Stop shitting on yourself.
Stop shitting on yourself, because you're already getting to a point where you're gonna be angry with yourself. With the teacher, with the practice, and that's when people will tend to say, "I hate yoga."
Yoga sucks.
So, you don't hate. Well, maybe you hate yoga. I don't know, but it's not likely that yoga is the thing. So you would do that for this one. I would say like 3 to 5 minutes per side to keep it balanced. Another variation would be both feet. So for both feet, you could rest the bolster. I personally like to take a bolster and then a block on my bolster. So sitting up really, really tall and from there, keeping that same length of my spine, fold out, see where my head lands, and then bring the block to my forehead, and then just let everything in the upper body go. This one tends to be a little bit less aggressive feeling for some people than doing one leg at a time.
Yeah.
Some people will feel uncomfortable in this one in the way that I've got it set up. Women who are pregnant, folks in larger bodies, having the bolster really close to you might not feel good. Bring the feet wider. It's totally fine to bring the feet wider. Stack the bolsters as high as you want, and then go from there. I've had folks in this one, the hamstrings are still super tight. It might look like this. That's okay.
Yeah.
If that's where you're at today, that's fine. And then also keeping in mind, that's where you're at today. So kind of letting each day, each practice be different and being okay with that. So that's part of, I think, the biggest mental practice associated with yin is that some days might look like this, and you got your forehead on your shins. Some days might look like this, and both are equally as good and equally as valid, and will yield pretty much the same benefits.
As Lauren was saying, there is a focus on hips, and so this is one of my favorites, and so double pigeon, or I think it's also called fire log and other things.
Square
pose,
square.
yeah.
Because you can look like a square with your
But
legs.
I also feel like it looks like, but it's an equilateral triangle if your hips are already open.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. So let me show you the end result. So the end result is you're looking for ankles over knees, knees over ankles, and the way that I teach it is when you peek in front of your knee that's on top, you peek in front, you want to see this part of the front of your bottom ankle. And so theoretically, your shins are parallel to the top of the mat. You're looking for a feeling of equal weight in your sit bones, and you're looking for some lift in your torso. So remember that when your spine is lengthened, it's going to pivot your pelvis. So if you're hunched over, your pelvis is pulling back, and this is not giving you a stretch anywhere. And if you sit upright, your pelvis tips up and is sort of giving you this anterior tilt, which is sort of what we're looking for getting some more action in the hips. So, and I only show you this, that this is the idea that perhaps we're going for. However, getting some lift, sitting on some blankets, okay? So, so I've got pictures all over the place of a couple of years ago of me in this pose.
Yeah,
and
you're like folded in half in it.
yeah, so, however, after 5 minutes, I probably can get down to my forehead on the floor. Not showing off, I'm just saying that number one, the beginning of the pose isn't the same as the end of the pose. And depending on the time of day, so I ran 8 miles this morning, my hips are tight, it's cold out, all sorts of things impact my body. I probably haven't had enough water, I'll be honest. And so sitting upright, my knee is not touching my ankle. Now here's the thing. So the way that I try to explain things in a yin practice is you're trying to ride that line between supporting yourself so that the muscles aren't engaging, because we're looking for the deep fascia, the tendons and ligaments. So I'm looking for that line between allowing my muscles to relax, but also giving myself this space to sink into. I know my body, and I know that after several minutes of breathing, I am going to have, I'm going to be coming into this space that I'm creating. However, not everybody's there.
No.
As Lauren's knees will show you.
I very rarely, I injured my hip like at this point 9 years ago, and as a result I don't have enough padding in the left hip, which is such a bummer because I don't want to have my hips replaced someday.
Great.
But because of that injury, for me, this is about where I go.
And you're looking to feel like, are you feeling it in your hip flexors? And
Always.
if you don't know,
Yeah.
so if you don't know, then try it, because this is also what I say, like our bodies are Stockholmed into believing that this is what normal feels like,
Right.
is all of this effort that I put into keeping my legs lifted, or I should do this. But the thing is, what I challenge you to do is prop up your knees.
Yeah.
Prop up your knees and feel the release that happens. You don't want these guys, these hip flexors, to be doing a whole lot of work. The whole point is we don't. We want them to sit, and then perhaps, okay, so now I'm completely bolstered. I feel like a queen right now. This is fantastic. So in a couple of minutes, perhaps, maybe I'm like, okay, this is cool. Maybe I'm gonna drop this block.
Yeah.
Maybe not. You know, so you rearrange, and you don't necessarily consider it fidgeting. You just consider it, my body is shifting.
Yeah. Like that idea of melting. So kind of like gradually releasing, like because with fascia, connective tissue, people will talk about like taffy, or they'll talk about like I used the saran wrap thing, like it's all bunched out. It's thinking about it slowly.
Yeah, because if you fuss with saran wrap, you just make it worse.
You snap it.
It's in your face. Now you're really not going to put it back over the bowl.
Yeah.
You got to take patience.
Yeah, patience. I think that's one of the things that Yin definitely has to offer us, is learning about our boundaries, our own boundaries, our limits, our own ability to sit with what's happening right now and be okay with it, which ties into everything that yoga is.
Yeah.
And then also too, nobody's symmetrical. So
No.
maybe what worked on one side, see, so like,
Oh yeah, this side, this is
I'm
a cinch for
fine.
me.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I switched sides, and now all of a sudden they could do it. So kind of also realizing that we all have our imbalances too, and then being okay with that. So sitting with it without judgment, without attaching a value to
Yeah.
the one side versus
It's
the
just
other.
you're right or left-handed.
Yeah.
You know, you're right side dominant, left side dominant. Consider the fact, okay, so I'm right-handed, you know, so I'm opening jars a lot with my right hand. So I'm stronger with my right arm.
Yeah.
You know, which means that the muscle is going to probably be a little bit tighter because I use it more. However, that also means that because I do more, I reach with my right side, that means that my tendons and ligaments are more open. I have more range of motion on the right side. The flip side is true on my left side. My left muscles aren't as tight because I don't do much with them. However, my hips, my joints, my tendons and ligaments are tighter because I don't have the range of motion, because it's not my dominant side. I don't start going up the stairs with my left foot.
Right, yeah, I do everything with right foot first.
Yeah.
Which is why the left leg is still a little bit jacked up.
Yeah, right, yeah. It's not usually as strong, it's not as, yeah. And one of the things, so especially when it comes to this pose in particular, but many of these poses where you're working on your hips, and you're feeling it. You could feel a sense of anger. You could feel a sense of maybe probably nausea, let's be honest.
Yeah, a bit.
Yeah. So I mean, there are a lot of emotions and feelings, like this sort of like this sort of fidgety, fighty thing that you just want to like get out of it. That's something to practice too. That's something to sit with, and that's a challenge. Like, recognize that this strange feeling that you have of wanting to punch things is likely just because this is tight and you're having to sit with it.
Right. It's the largest muscle group we've got, and we are, as a society, sitting too much. And even if you have a regular yoga practice, that's 1 hour out of your day. So what are you doing for the rest of the day? I mean, it helps, but still, it's just knowing that that's going to be an area that's going to be a little bit more difficult for everybody. And then also too, if your hips, like myself, they rotate inward more. When I was a kid, I had to wear corrective shoes, like the kind that went all the way up to the shins, because my toes turned completely in. I was so pigeon-toed, and it only helped like a little bit. So I have to modify everything we do with more or less props. So just kind of like, yeah, I was actually really adorable and modest. So cute in my corrective shoes. But I was gonna say too, I think I've brought this up a bunch of times too. It sounds a little masochistic, but the Iyengar quote, when you feel like you want to get out of the pose is when the pose begins. I feel like that really applies
It's probably
to
true.
yin. It's a bit harsh. I feel like it's a little bit much, but I think it's also kind of true. It's more true, I think, mentally.
Yeah, and and truly, like, you're talking about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
so
5 minutes of your life
right.
compared to the rest of your day.
Yeah. It can feel like a long time.
Yeah.
The last pose that we're going to show you too, this is actually going to blend us from yin into restorative. So this last pose is technically called Viparita Karani, and it's legs up the wall. So we want to show you how you're going to get into it, and it's not graceful, but it's a lovely pose. So we're going to get ourselves into it.
I know, I'm afraid to go when you're going, like we're just gonna
We might die.
it's gonna be a collision.
This is extreme yoga, folks. This is extreme yoga.
You go first and then I'll go. So.
Alright. So this is from years of practice. You learn how to get into it gracefully.
And then scoot around a lot.
Yeah. So the idea is, like, the ultimate prop in the room is the wall and the floor. So you're using the wall. My butt's right up against it. I can feel my butt against the molding here. Legs up the wall. So this is an inversion, but it's really nice and easy.
And if your hamstrings are super tight, you can push yourself away from the wall a little bit.
Yeah.
So further away from the wall for really tight hamstrings, closer if they're pretty open already. The legs don't have to be completely straight. They can be a little bit soft. And the arms they can kind of do whatever.
Yeah.
I like to rest them either at my side or like you've got your hands on your belly. That could
Yeah.
be nice too. So lots of different options here. You could have your back flat, or you could have, like we're both up on a blanket, you could even be up on a bolster under your hips.
I like to do this as like the Shavasana, especially like
Yeah.
in the middle of the day. So like this keeps your energy up a little bit, and you're still a little bit awake and present, but you still, like, I feel, I could probably, okay, there we go. I think I could relax my knees a little bit more. There we go. Yeah.
I will often teach this at the end, and then I'll give people the option to move into a traditional Shavasana, and nobody ever goes into traditional Shavasana. They're like, oh no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. So you can do this, and then also, if you've got the hips for it, then maybe some Baddha Konasana. But however, I mean, I can certainly feel this in my hip flexors.
Ooh, or you could bring one foot down and one foot up for a hip opener.
Yeah, you could do that if you really want.
There's lots of cool stuff you could do with the wall.
Yeah, the wall is a prop. Totally a prop. Yeah. All right, so this is the end of yin. So the idea for yin is deep stretching, deep holds for your tendons and ligaments mostly, but also you're just holding poses supported, and you are trying to work on relaxing. So so our next video is going to be on restorative. That if we're really clever with editing, it might just start with us doing this, because this is also a restorative pose, right?
Yeah, you could start a restorative pose and like something.
Yeah. So yin can be kind of uncomfortable, let's be honest.
Yeah. Like I wasn't comfortable in that double pigeon at all.
Yeah, right. A little bit angry. All right, well, thank you, everyone. If you enjoyed this, please click like or subscribe. And our next video is going to be about restorative yoga. Woo! We're just going to hang out here.
Yeah, bye.